welcome to the first episode of Searchie Spotlight. I'm here with Valeria. Valeria, thank you so much for joining us. How is your day going so far?
It's going pretty good. Definitely going good. How about you?
It's going good as well. We were just laughing about some technical malfunctions before. It always has to happen before the beginning of a very important call. So I am super excited that we have this opportunity with some context behind us now to dive into a conversation that I'm super excited about. Yes. So if you could start off with telling us a little bit more about who you are and who your market is.
Well, I'm Valeria Weber-Williamson, and I have 3 different memberships. Primarily, I serve yoga practitioners who really want to get that daily practice in that they love doing, but also gets them results. So to that end, I have a subscription box, but I have 2 digital memberships as well that somewhat kind of coexist in that they all sort of work together. So the sorry, can you hear the dogs in the background? Okay, thank God. Okay, so I have 3 memberships. One is a subscription box, and it coexists with the other 2 digital ones. The primary digital one is an online yoga studio where we do on the mat and off the mat style practices. And then the other one is for teachers. It's to help them streamline the back end of their business so they can grow a little bit more quickly.
That's amazing. And there's so much to unpack there as well. So I'm really excited as we get into these next questions to learn a little bit more about, as you're saying, how these 3 different memberships coexist. So you kind of talked about this in your first question in terms of serving both yoga practitioners and serving both yoga teachers, but can you get a little bit more into how you serve your market in terms of those 2 different groups of yoga practitioners and yoga teachers that you serve?
Well, it's for yoga practitioners who they sort of know that yoga asana, this practice that you do on the mat, is just the one small piece of an overall yoga practice. And they know a little bit about some of the benefits, but maybe they don't know all of them. So a lot of my work in terms of reaching them is helping them to understand the possibilities and recognize this huge spectrum of practice that's out there. And then this is getting them into the membership, and then in the membership, we explore much more deeply, and we give each other that community, that accountability, and with lots of, new guest teachers and workbooks and monthly goal setting sessions and things that sort of bring us all together. When it comes to the teachers, I actually have teachers that are in both. I do have some members who are in all 3 memberships, and then I have quite a few that are in the 2 digital ones. A lot of times, a yoga teacher likes to work on her own personal practice and developing things on and off the mat. And then she also wants to be growing her business as well. And we kind of recognize in the yoga world that you really have to do both or you get burnout pretty quickly. So, we're streamlining back end things. I provide a lot of done for you templates and sequences that are designed just for the yoga community. And then the other one is really just about your personal practice.
So you kind of touched on this in your last question, just in terms of what those different deliverables look like that you offer both to yoga practitioners and yoga teachers, often across the different memberships that you serve. But how does Searchie play into some of the more tangible things that you offer your community members?
Well, that's actually interesting. I've actually, when I first started bringing everything over, I brought my first membership. My first digital membership was the Do a Shot of Yoga Online Studio. That's the one that's about yoga practice. And I have pivoted so frequently in the past 2 years since I started because I had ideas about what I wanted to do. And I was definitely overserving. It was just too much stuff. And I felt this need to, give this amazing amount of information so that when they entered, they didn't feel like it was very sparse and, sort of a wasteland with very little to offer. So over time, tweaked it a little bit, some different offerings, tried this one, tried that one, and changed things up. So when I brought everything from my old platform over to Searchie, it was interesting to see how some of those different options played out within the Searchie world. So Searchie is very video focused, and I have some of my offerings are challenge based, or there are downloads that you kind of just sort of download every month. It doesn't necessarily go with a video. So it was interesting to be able to organize and play with the organization a little bit in Searchie to make it so that you could look at it and see all the different options from all across the years, and be able to get the paper versions, to get the stuff that's really primarily audio, and then also get the stuff that is video based and has your options for workbook downloads and that kind of thing. And it really just, it looks very cohesive, even though the content is not. It's very different styles of content, but Searchie makes it all look like it just melds together.
We definitely love when everything sort of fits together in that format, and it's especially valuable when it works for your members as well. You were talking a little bit about the fact that you already did have existing businesses on another platform. Did you have any hesitations with regards to the migration to Searchie? Because I know that you were mentioning earlier that you found that you were pivoting quite quickly and on a needs basis and sort of refining those offers. And you also talked about something that I think we see a lot in the industry, which is over-serving. And something that we found both at Searchie and with us being content creators is that often less is more. So did you have any of those fears kind of bubbling up, or anything that was holding you back? Because as you mentioned, you had a ton of content that already existed and you were already serving members on another platform. So what was that migration like for you?
The actual migration was pretty seamless, pretty easy, but the year before I decided to actually do it, it was stressful. I kept watching this information grow. I knew that there was many different kinds, so I wasn't really sure about how to organize it. I'm not a tech person at all. And I found too that, like, when I would watch the stats, people just were not addressing any of the information that I'd done in the first 18 months. At best, they might go back to the past 6 months, because that's what you could see when you entered the membership. It would be the most recent things. But beyond that, nobody was really scrolling. It's hard to see what is in each one without opening it up and then opening it up again. And nobody's got time for that. So when it came to that mental piece of how do I decide to organize all this? I'm certainly not going to keep doing it by months. How do I do it by topic, especially, or is it by style, or is it by level of practice or focus? It was just a lot to think about. I had Searchie for over a year and used it only for transcripts and to pull an audio down. It was actually very easy, and it was a very, in terms of getting transcripts, it was very affordable for that purpose alone. So I felt justified in having it for that. And certainly people use transcripts a lot, which I did not realize before I got into Tribe, but it turned out absolutely the case. They very much appreciated having that. It's one of those little nuggets that you don't think about, but it ends up like blowing things up in a really positive way. But when it came time to actually switch it, literally more than 2 years worth of content with a new deliverable every single week, and sometimes very complex multi-day deliverables in some of those weeks, especially in the beginning. But bringing it all the way over to Searchie took about, as I downloaded everything, it maybe took like a few afternoons of going in, because I had to come up with some naming conventions and there was some decision making along the way. But once I opened up Searchie and brought it up, everything is really intuitive from that point on. If you've got your solid naming conventions and you know kind of where you want to go with it, there's some templates that are already laid out. So you can look at them and explore and visualize how you'd like to look, how you want things to look, how you want people to see things. And after that, it's just the process of uploading, creating playlists, dropping this here and there. And the nicest thing about it is that I like to tweak with things. I am, perfectionist, but also not sure of what I want really until I see it. And if you have, say, a web developer where you're developing a website, that's the worst trait to have, because I'll be like, I want this. And then I'll see it and I'll be like, oh, that's awful. I don't want that. Take all that down. Let's try this instead. And I'll go back and forth. On Searchie, it's easy enough where I can go through that process on my own without burdening my neuroses, someone else with my my weird little stuff. So I'm able to switch out. Do I want to put a picture up for this? Do I want to have a different kind of a thumbnail? Do I want to do just like a placard? Do I want to use playlists and have it scrollable, or do I want it to have in blocks? And it really is easy to switch back and forth between the two, to change the colors across the board and see how it looks. So you can make an informed decision instead of just like, oh, you know what? I've already spent so many hours getting it to look like this. I can't even deal with it. I'm just going to let it be what it is. Like, you're happy with it when you walk away because you get time. It's easy to just go in and play.
I love that, because I feel like in many ways the platform was made for people who, kind of have a good visualization of what they want an end product to look like, but it also allows us to kind of challenge those misconceptions to see, actually how does changing how I package this specific, arrangement of 5 videos, how does changing what that looks like, change the impact for my audience? So you were kind of talking about this just in terms of as you were migrating the content over, you could visualize it. And once it was all under the same roof, you could start to imagine how you can organize that in a way to repurpose your content so that people can still get through all of the valuable content that may have been produced over 6 months ago, but still has the same amount of value as the content that we're producing month to month and all of the new content that we're doing. So we're going to jump ahead a little bit to the future. Oftentimes at Searchie, we talk a lot about how actually just having your content in one place really unlocks the potential for exploring what the future has to offer and thinking about how we want to continue driving our business forward. So when it comes to your business, Valeria, I know that you have a physical product, and I know that you have 2 online products, and there's often overlap between your audience, which is definitely something we'll cover a little bit later on. But what does the future look like for that? What has these insights, as you're saying, even like the nuggets, like the transcript, opened your mind to in terms of how you can start to lay out the future of your business, both for the physical side of your business and the digital side of your business?
Well, one of the nice things about Searchie is that if you want to very quickly get up a ton of information, everything can live on one page. And if you click on, say, a section of it, it'll open up, it'll sort of pop up and start to play right there on the page. But if you want to, you can open it up and have a whole separate page that further breaks down all the different things. So if you're kind of in a rush, you want to get it going, this much time, and you know that it's still workable, it's beautiful, it's going to work, but you always know that later on you can map it out a little bit more. There's a lot of talk about personalizing the membership so that each person who comes in has their own unique experience, that they can also change up a little bit as they grow and change over time. So they'll see different content without having that overwhelmed feeling. And that is certainly something that grows as well, especially in my industry with the yoga world. I do get some people who are brand new to yoga, and they'll stay with me and learn, and every single bit of information they get is brand new, mind-blowing, incredible stuff. But I have a lot of people who are teachers, or they're longtime practitioners, and they just want to go deeper, and then they sort of become teachers over time. And I can actually offer continuing education credits to teachers for taking those courses. So it gives them an extra bonus. But then eventually, if they decide they want that business part, I have another membership for that as well. And when it comes to thinking about the future of different things, and multiple products for each person, I'm watching how people grow and change. I see where they tend to hit an obstacle in some cases, and in some cases you can actually create something that speaks to that. In other cases, you just sort of get that, like, maybe one thing I love about Searchie is that you can see everybody's searches. So you have analytics that give you a ton of insight into what is important to people. And you can see, like, if they're taking that little journey when they first open up, seeing where most people are landing. You'll get maybe only 1 or 2 are in this version of it, but you have a ton of people who are over here, and it helps you to create stuff that is speaking to the larger groups. I also have hubs though too. My memberships are my primary product, of course, but I do have a couple of challenges that live there. And I'm thinking about bringing over, I have some free content, and again, years worth of content here that's just sort of, I've got it in folders, it's in a free Facebook group, and that's kind of where it all lives, but it's a ton of work put into that, a ton of research, a ton of time. And rather than recreating it, I can bring it into the Searchie hub and create a new one that's just free for people to sort of explore and get to know me, my style, the type of information, and be able to put all that hard work. So it's actively being used now. It's not just the in the moment of the live. I could actually, kind of go on vacation a little bit and not feel like I'm leaving people in the lurch. Like there's a ton of information for people to gain value that'll help them to get that, develop that relationship with my style, how I approach things, to see if they want to go further.
That was incredible. I made so many notes just with your answers there, Valeria. And I think that what you were talking about in terms of spending less time kind of on the processes and being able to repurpose a lot of the content that works, it does open up that opportunity that you can spend more time actually seeing how people are learning and progressing, and building products that speak to the challenges, I think, is a super impactful way to add, I think, meaning and purpose to whatever future endeavors you may add to your business. And that's something I wanted to talk a little bit more about, because I know that earlier in our conversation, we were talking about how you actually have an overlap between the three different products that you offer. You mentioned that oftentimes you're selling to people who are actually already buying. So I think this is something that is often maybe even a misconception in the industry, where if someone purchases from me, once, why would they purchase, more similar offers from me, especially if, I have 2 digital memberships. So what have you maybe learned just in terms of what that relationship is like between your audience as a whole, and what that means for the multiple products that you have that serve your community?
Well, in some ways it can amplify. So for example, a lot of times I'll have people who find me through the product box. They were just looking for something fun. But in that product box, I have a book. Every single month, there is some sort of book that's related to on or off the mat yoga practice. Well, in my digital membership, I have one of my deliverables is a yoga book chat. And the book that we talk about is the one that went out in the box. So it kind of goes like, sometimes people will be like, wait, there's a digital thing, there's a book chat. How do I access that? And I'll be like, oh, well, it's right over here. Check it out. It has all these other things. You get asana classes, you get all this other stuff. But it's separate from that, because not everybody wants both. Some people feel like that it's overwhelmed. I just wanted a box. I don't want homework, like that kind of thing. And then other people are like, I really don't want stuff. I just want the information. So I keep it separate, but there's an option to put them together. And so there are sometimes correlating themes between the on the mat month and the teacher month as well. So the teachers can actually grow in a much larger way. So it's not just business over here. They can see how it integrates into that yoga philosophy, and it creates multiple options. We were talking a little bit too earlier about how it can be, it's been challenging, I think is a good way, COVID, the economy, the iOS changes, like things, there's a lot of places where business owners have had to be patient. They've had to sort of sit back and listen and watch for a minute and see what's happening to make a change and experiment, and be exceptionally patient with that process, which I think most of us, we're in this because we want to see things grow. And if we see that start to recede or stagnate, it can be very frustrating. So it's a practice, a yogic practice almost to deal with the way the world is. But during COVID, my industry specifically, a lot of yoga studios shut down. So people were looking for ways to practice yoga at home. And then a ton of people who had never had time for yoga, but had kind of thought about it, were like, you know what, I'm at home, let's give it a shot. So my business tripled during the year of COVID. But since that time, the growth has been impacted by the iOS changes for sure. And then certainly in the past, I would say 4 or 5 months, I've seen issues with, the economy, inflation is runaway. And so especially for the product business, which is only US based, the shipping to other countries just takes too long and it's crazy. So it's just US based. I've seen our economy here impact that specifically. But that doesn't mean that there's no room to grow. So you have some people who are still with you, some who have been with you since the beginning. They're open to new ideas. You want to run a challenge for, a low dollar offer and just get a little extra income. You've got that opportunity. And a lot of the people who buy in are the ones who have been with me the whole time. There are opportunities to sort of partner with other people, and you have affiliate stuff happening where you see that maybe a certain percentage of your population are interested in expanding their knowledge in a direction that you either don't have interest in or the bandwidth for. It's just outside of your purview, and that's not going to change. Certainly you don't want to bring more on, but you can partner with someone and work together. And that way you're sort of, you're still sort of getting some extra income in, but not necessarily sinking a ton into ads, or while you're experimenting with the ads a little bit, making changes and seeing how it impacts the bottom line, the leads, and the quality of those leads. So having that growing that base can help you to, you create that overlap. So it's, how it goes together. It's very cohesive, and that's valuable to people. But then there's also ways to sort of branch out from that. So it's not always this struggle to bring in someone new, convince them that your stuff is amazing and they want to be with you forever. I mean, of course, that's always sort of a process in the background as you get to know people, but at the same time, you can continue to have this partnership that you've worked so hard to build with the people who know you and know that you are bringing value to their experience with your, well, in my case, their yoga journey, but whatever journey it is that you're taking them on.
I think there's an incredible message there, just in terms of being open to change and how that can impact the leads, as we're talking about. There's so many different ways that we can find opportunities, and it's incredible to hear that your business basically tripled during the course of the pandemic. There's so many things that just like that have been outside of our control, but still allow us, if we have, our head in the game, to really find a good opportunity that allows us to create those partnerships, whether that's with our members, whether that's with other industry owners. And there's definitely, I think, a lot to be said there in terms of the power of community and how that can change lives as well.
Yes, definitely.
So let's move in a little bit into the numbers parts. We've talked a little bit about how you do have 3 different sources of recurring revenue in your business. And we often talk about what recurring revenue means in terms of bringing stability to someone's life, especially when there's outside factors that can impact our ability to serve our communities. During the course of the pandemic, as we were talking about, a lot of yoga studios that served members physically did close down as well. So would you be open to giving us a snapshot of what kind of recurring revenue you're bringing in, specifically that relationship between the 3 different products that you offer?
Well, I mean, the specifics of that are always changing. I can say that, especially with COVID, it was valuable to have that ability to continue to work. As a yoga teacher, those yoga studios shutting down didn't just mean that people didn't have somewhere to go. We didn't have anywhere to go for our practice, and we lost our income. And most yoga teachers tend to make anywhere from $15 to $50 an hour, depending on what part of the country you're in and the studio that you work with. And even if you're working, 10 classes a week, this is not enough to be sustainable. And in the yoga world specifically, being able to take that online, it is not an exaggeration to say that you can 30x your income within 6 months to a year, depending on how focused and driven. If you're kind of looking at it as a hobby and a side job, it's going to take a little longer. If it's your main focus, it's going to go a lot more quickly. But it's given me the freedom to kind of be more present with the kids who are here. I have 6 in total. I have 2 who are homeschooled. I have 2 more who are special needs. So there's lots to do around here, and being able to still have this thing that is mine, that is something where I can talk about my passions with other like-minded adults in a lot of different ways through the different memberships is definitely valuable. And the finances are valuable for sure, especially when you're talking about being a yoga teacher just in studio versus being online. Much greater. It definitely, at least, wow, I'm trying to think of like my tax returns last year and what that looked like compared to teaching yoga before I got started with all this. And they were amazing last year. The biggest part because in the beginning, I was spending so much on reinvesting everything I made back into learning how to do this whole thing. And after doing Tribe, and for being in the Tribe membership ever since I've done Tribe, coming back and doing Tribe again in the years that follow, I have not had to invest all that money into all the courses, all the things, all the memberships, which really depletes your bottom line, right? So, I mean, it's grown and grown and grown, not just because with the Tribe membership experience, you're learning how to kind of pivot with the changes. You're seeing what's working for other people. There's lots of communication within the community as people share resources. And that has been invaluable, not only in growing the business, but kind of making me feel more secure in terms of, I don't need to go and put down this money on a guess that hopefully this other course or this other membership or this other coach is going to be able to help me grow, because I've got a lot of that right there. So there's been this like just steady growth over the past 3 years where the first year I did it, I was making about as much money as I was in person. The second year I did it, it doubled from that. And then the third year, I tripled the second year. And I've been maintaining, we're about halfway through the 4th year now. And with the iOS and stuff, there hasn't been the same amount of growth, but it is definitely maintained. And it's given me the opportunity to build lots of foundations for things to go forward. And having the ease of the hubs has taken a lot less off my plate in terms of time. And having the support of the community has meant that I have a place to go for answers that are quick, so that I'm not like spending weeks researching and trying to involve in another course. I can just talk to people who are in there, see what they've learned and done. A lot of times I don't even have to ask. I can just search, in the membership platform or in Tribe, and I can find those answers right there. They might have come up in a Q&A. They might have come up from an actual lesson. A lot of times it comes up from membership shares. So it's really nice to have this library to always sort of fall back on. And that has been a huge part of my growth too.
It's so amazing to hear about your growth, and I can't help but make a yoga reference here where if there's one thing I know about yoga, it's that having a strong core sustains movement. And I think there's a lot to be said for, passion being at your core, and passion being at the core of driving that sustainable change where the investment is you. The investment is your insights and your ability to craft those offers in a way that touches on all the things that you know to be true inside of your membership. And I think that's what I want to wrap this interview up with, specifically with a question about looking forward. We know from your journey, Valeria, that having a strong core and having that foundation really empowers people to be able to continue moving forward and scaling their businesses in a meaningful way. So just in terms of looking forward, the connection between yoga and sustainability, what does sustainability look like for you in your business? What do you think, is at the base of an action that you can take to really drive your business forward, regardless of what stage of business and what stage of life your business is in? What would you say about that connection between, as I said, yoga and sustainability?
Well, it may sound counterintuitive, but the biggest thing that I feel empowered to do at this point is scale back. That I've been able to grow 3 wonderful memberships, but I, naturally kind of enjoy some of the work for some more than others. And when you're first starting, you want to grow with all these different things and try all these things. And after a few years, you don't want to hit burnout. You don't want to start to lose that passion, especially when you're working in an industry that you feel a personal attachment to, right? So, yoga, especially, most of us come to this business because we found a very personal, incredible, beautiful value to our own practice, and we want to share that. But if you are constantly immersed in the business, you start to lose that spark and that connection, and you're just kind of not as in it anymore. And so I think I had some periods where I was more in the business of yoga than on the mat or off the mat, doing my own yoga practice. And having been able to grow things to this point, I'm now able to feel confident enough to say, you know what, if I want to, I can just focus on this membership or these 2 memberships, and maybe I'm going to let that one go. And I always have the knowledge that I might just take a break for 6 months because it's my business and I can, and I know how to get it back going again. It's not necessarily something that is a finite thing. There's always ways to pivot, to maneuver and come back, to try different things, to show up in different ways in people's lives, and to show up in your own. In yoga, we talk about having seasons that, something that you try in your 20s is going to hit you a certain way, positive or negative. But in your 40s and in your 60s, it's going to be a different experience. Most of us don't sustain the same level of connection to the same activities or philosophies or perspectives throughout our life. And the same is true for business. It might be that we can explore one venture and know that this is probably going to be like a 3 or 4 year thing. And that's really all it was ever meant to be. And you don't feel that need of I can't stop doing everything because I'll be broke. It'll all fall down. I'll lose that income. I can't afford to lose it. You've learned that you can grow the things that you really love the most to increase your time with your family and your own personal life, which is kind of why we're doing all this, right? So there is value in having the autonomy to choose the kind of business that you want to have. You can hire people and make it this big, huge business and start to, really grow and expand and have big, huge teams. Or you can just make that choice of that's not really what I want for my life. I like my small business. I want to keep it at that level. I want to have my fingers in all the pies, but, I also want to have, my life as well. So you can make choices throughout and know that whatever is right for you it's still going to be possible in this world.
That was incredibly inspired. I think just that practice of seeing sustainability as a way to scale back, and scaling back being that practice that allows us to, as you were saying, grow the things we love the most, I think is a great, message to kind of close us off. I think that as content creators, that's definitely something that we want to put at the forefront of our thinking when we're designing these programs, when we're launching new programs, when we're maintaining existing programs that we have, to always think about, am I growing the things that I love the most?
Yeah. Is this something I really want? What are my reasons? And why do I feel pushed to do this? Is it, coming from internal, or does it feel like external pressure? And being able to identify that is definitely very valuable in finding, the direction that you want to take, because there's so many options.
Absolutely. There are definitely a lot of options. I think that your journey specific, Valeria, is definitely an amazing journey. And I'm so happy that we were able to learn a little bit more about what it means to grow and scale, and what it means to scale back as well as a way to grow. So thank you so much for joining us today for the Spotlight interview. It's been incredibly humbling to get to know you and get to know how you think. I think that the message, again, that you have will really serve our community in helping them hopefully overcome some of the blocks that you've been through in your entrepreneurial journey, and help them find that focus as well. So thank you.
Very glad to help. Very glad to help.
Amazing. Thank you so much.